Welcome everyone to episode number 19 of Move, Crush, Count. This is a podcast produced by J&L Marketing. Listen, the podcast is all about helping business leaders, entrepreneurs who are feeling the pressure of being marginalized or commoditized by the marketplace. How do we help them strike back? Today I'm very excited about our guest. His name is Adam Arens, owns multiple rooftops. More importantly, we're recording this during the COVID period, right? A lot of stay at home. Adam has done an incredible job when it comes to growing his market share, and a lot of the things that he's going to be talking about, he gets into a lot of specifics on not only what he did, but how he's doing it and what he plans to keep moving forward. This is a very exciting episode. I think a lot of businesses, regardless of the vertical you're in, can benefit from this. So let's go jump in and we'll introduce Adam.
You're listening to Move, Crush, Count, hosted by Scott Joseph.
All right, welcome everybody to Move, Crush, Count. This is a podcast produced by J&L Marketing. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Adam Arens. 3 different dealerships: Patriot Subaru of, I want to make sure I pronounce this right, Saco, Maine.
Saco,
Maine. All right. Patriot Subaru of North Attleboro, Massachusetts.
Correct.
Right? And Patriot Nissan in Salem, New Hampshire.
Correct.
Now you haven't bought any more since I've.
So we're under construction on a few other businesses and expansion as we speak. But yeah, we're building an Acura store in Maine. It'll be the first Acura store in Maine, and we're completing the build out on a manufacturing and dispensary business in Massachusetts as well.
Nice. And, you know, one of the reasons that I wanted, and I was so excited to bring you on, was you participated in the Dealership Weekly Information Network, DWIN, last week, and you shared a lot of your best practices on what you did specifically to help you get through the COVID. And I know you're in many of your stores, you're still going through it, and we're all going through it, but what You're also doing coming out of it. And you're having a high level of success. And I was talking to a very well-respected person yesterday in the auto business, and compared to what they normally do, they are down, but more importantly, he's not outpacing competitors. And this is a person that if you were to ask 10 people out of, 10 people what their opinion of this person is in terms of an operator, 10 out of 10 would tell you that he is by far one of the maybe top 3 in the country. And
awesome.
What I thought was interesting about that is my conversation with him was, listen, I don't think people are necessarily measuring us based on how many you're actually selling or what your service numbers look like right now. I think the real winners that are going to come out of this, because most people are down. There are stores that have done a great job maintaining, and some have increased, but that is far and few between.
Right.
But the real winners are going to come is, how are you outpacing the people you compete against?
Right.
Are your numbers growing in that area compared to normal times? Because if so, you're gaining market share that will benefit you long term.
Right.
And so that grabbed me because I know that you're doing that. And so I want this audience to understand completely exactly how you did it, but more importantly, what you're doing moving forward, because your planning and your strategy, I think it doesn't matter if you're an auto dealer, it doesn't matter what business vertical you're in. I think everybody could benefit from your approach on this. So I'm excited to have you on here. Welcome.
Well, it's an honor to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to learn from the people that you've shared with me, and I certainly feel the obligation to share back with some of the successes that we've had and some of the failures. But, I tell people, I said, this is, I lead with these 2 words right now: fear and confusion. So that's the thing that causes people to make bad decisions, but more importantly, causes them to be paralyzed. So I don't know what to do. And so we made the decision that we would continue to do what we've always done, which is communicate with our associates when this started. And I think maybe that has really helped us along. Also, we were never completely shut down by the states, although we're still in shutdown and lockdown. in Massachusetts and somewhat in Maine and a little bit in New Hampshire. But as I told everybody that I could reach out to, is do not shut your doors under any set of circumstances. And for those people in the car business, I said, basically, if you want to, I can race you in a slower car, but if I'm moving when I start and you're stopped when you start, I'm going to beat you every time, right? I'm just going to beat you every time. And so all of that has played into a lot of different things, which included a lot of planning. But I got a chance to remind our team that in 2009, when everybody else took it on the chin, we set a record, and it was the first time we made more than something that started with the 1 million in our dealership at a time when everybody else was falling apart. And then, and we've kind of seen the same thing happen this time. So there's a longer part of this story, but I'm certainly willing to go into any depths of what it is, but because we're now at a new pivot point, and that is not what does our business look like today, what's our business going to look like in the future. And we owe that to the people who have shared part of their lives with us, either as a customer or as an associate working there, or as a partner, as a manufacturer. And we've made some decisions in this last week that are different than the decisions we made a week before. All right. It's kind of crazy, because I think I don't want to be the sharer of bad news, because I think it's actually good news, but this isn't going away. And so once you come to the realization that this is not going to go away, then you can make real plans that require investment, require communication, require some hand-holding. But if we get into the communication business and planning business, then the fear and confusion goes away for everybody. And right now we're playing against a whole bunch of marketing, whether they're intending to market or not, social media, regular media, friends, family, that are all living in paralyzation, right? So you have no idea when your kids are supposed to go back to school. So I'm not sure how you manage that environment at home. You're not sure if you can open your restaurant to serve indoors. And if I can only have 50% capacity or 25% capacity, I better change my business model, or maybe it is time to shut the doors, right? And if you're paying, in some cases, like car dealers do, $100,000+ worth of rent every month, you need to have a plan to either change that rent factor somehow, or maybe even do business in smaller facilities in the future, or figure out that, you don't need to have, we've already figured out we don't need to be open till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. We have no plan to go back to 8 or 9 o'clock at night in a year, right?
And I want to get into all this.
Okay, sorry.
You're mentioning some things, and things are going off in my head. I'm like, I definitely want to talk about what plans are for the future and why. Before we get going, I want everybody to understand where you're coming from in terms of your experience, your knowledge. First off, I know before the dealerships you worked for JM&A, and
Yep.
for those of outside of auto, my stores use JM&A as well. Their reputation is extremely professional. They deliver results, outstanding group. So if you want to go back to that in terms of, where have you learned the techniques? You talk a lot about strategy that we're going to get into in planning. Where did you learn those skills?
So I was in the retail car business and working in Toyota stores, and this is the early 1980s. And I obviously got to meet some people from Southeast Toyota then, and made the determination that I wanted to be part of that team, either continue to grow through the dealership that I was in, and I got an opportunity to do that. But then when my dealership had changed hands, that became the first time that I was allowed to interview with them, because you can't work in a Toyota store and go to work for Southeast Toyota. So my wife was pregnant. And now it'll be 33 years ago soon. And so I left and went to work for another dealer, and then immediately interviewed with the leadership team at Southeast Toyota, whenever that time frame was. And they brought me on, and I did traditional things for Southeast Toyota and the finance company because I had a background in finance as well. And then eventually ended up being kind of in charge of their F&I training and management training for their customers and for their associates. And then that led into JM&A was the F&I company, and then we grew that to parts of the country. So first we only serviced, the Toyota dealers in the Southeast, and then started to service non-Toyota dealers in the Southeast. And then when we decided to grow it outside of the Southeast, I was given an opportunity to help grow the company with new relationships, new products, and new markets. And so I was there for 17 years.
What brought you back into the dealership world? What made you want to get your own stores?
So I was there for 17 years, and eventually I believe the company culture shifted a little bit, and one individual who was above me caused me to lose respect for them. Okay. And this is, I will say this sincerely. You have to assume that the person in charge knows what's going on below them. It's not up to you to blow the whistle on anybody else. It's up to you to figure out why they're okay with it. And I was not okay with it. So I left a 17-year relationship, was given some opportunities to work for some large dealership, public and private organizations. And I said, you know what, I worked for the best human being in the world for 17 years. I'm now going to implement the practices that I learned there. Those things were to give people, treat people like their family, to look at the consequences of the decisions and how they affect people who are not in the room as well as the people who are in the room, and treat your associates like they are associates. And so I went out there and decided that I was going to find out if I was full of shit or not, because I was coaching car dealers on how to run their businesses for a long time and helping them improve. But then it was time for me to figure out if I was full of shit or not. Right? If what I was saying was real.
This explains why your F&I, why you have such a good reputation in your stores with that. So
it comes down to honoring people's tenure and loyalty to you and your company. And so when you start the process of listen, I've made mistakes. I've gotten upset at times, but when you bring somebody into the company, you should try to make it so that it's the last place they ever have to interview for a job, right? It's the last place they should want to stay there forever. And so my story is that I reached out to a couple of manufacturers about what opportunities they had for open points. I actually got on a plane and looked at a dealership in Louisville, Kentucky that I almost bought. And
are you allowed to say which one, or?
I don't know. I don't know what the name of it is anymore, but it certainly was a domestic manufacturer.
Okay.
But it got to the point of, for me, was to figure out if my family at that time could live in that market. And I will tell you that we could. It was a nice, we liked Louisville.
How long ago was this? This is
17 years.
Oh, yeah. So
yeah.
Louisville's quite different today than it was 17 years ago.
Yeah. But, this is probably shouldn't be on a podcast, but I'll allow you to certainly edit it if you choose to. But I remember I went to look at a house. So for me, it's look at the community, look at the school, look at some homes, and for me religiously to find out if there's a community that I could bond with religiously in Louisville. So we go to look at this house. I found a real estate agent to spend an afternoon with. Lady answered the door when we were going in to look at the house, and I thought she says, that's unusual for the owner of the house to open the door, and the real estate agent said that wasn't the owner, that was the maid. And I said, the maid speaks English? That's how long I had been in South Florida. So my wife is from Alabama, so we thought Louisville was similar to Birmingham in some ways too. So anyway,
Yes.
I did not make the decision to buy that, but I did engage with a few of the manufacturers. We made a decision that we wanted to be on the East Coast. It just made sense for us. So I ended up looking at this open point with Subaru in 2003, and then we got another open point with Subaru, and then took a failed point from Nissan, and now we have the open point with Acura. So I'm not good at transacting buy sells, but I am good at building from scratch. And if you start from scratch and say, listen, we want to hire a diverse group of people who can come together as a team and never want to leave. And if you can stick to that mantra, you will get better at what you do every day, right? So give them higher average people, give them a wonderful environment, and they'll stay forever. And which was my experience at JM Family, right? I'm an average person. They provided an excellent opportunity. And then until I reported to somebody who I thought was an asshole, I stayed.
Yeah.
But I couldn't look in the mirror and continue. And again, it's not up to you to go up to the owner of the company and say, by the way, this guy's an asshole. If the owner doesn't know, then it's on the owner.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Sorry.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the planning and the strategy, because I think when, for lack of a better word or phrase, when the shit hit the fan for everybody, and it didn't matter what business vertical you're in, there were a lot of businesses scrambling and immediately either just laid off, furloughed. And I'm not, some of those are right decisions and whatever. You have to do what you have to do. But I think there was let's just pause everything. Let's see what's happening. And you had a very specific plan and a tiered plan that I'd like other people to kind of hear about. Can you kind of go into that?
Sure. So it started with the bringing the leadership team together, and letting the leadership team be involved in this. And it started with that we have to communicate to our people that we're aware, right? You can't just hide, right? And so we did an analysis of every expense in the dealership. We made a plan calling for 50% reduction, 40% reduction, and 60% reduction. And once you build that spreadsheet together, then you can start to make decisions. Our initial plan called for everybody on salary to take a 20% reduction, as well as go to a 4-day work week. That didn't mean everybody went to a 4-day work week. That meant that we weren't going to expect people to take a reduction in pay and continue to do the same amount of work they were doing, other than the GMs and myself. Yeah. And so that's where it started.
Which goes to what you said earlier in terms of the decisions and how they impact people, treating people like family. You're basically saying the leaders took the biggest brunt or heavy lifting
absolutely,
of what was expected. So
right. And we start with the declaration is that I'll go to zero, which I did. I'll go to zero before anybody goes below the 20% piece. But the reality is, if you're going to have 40% less business, you can either cut 40% of your people and continue the old business model, or you can cut and a little bit from everybody in their work expectation, and reduce the outflow of cash while maintaining people's dignity, right? So, listen, there's people that have done their job, and I mean, there's doctors in this world that are now furloughed, right? They've done everything they possibly can, but they're not allowed to do the work that they were doing before. So we figured that out. And by the way, skipping a few steps in the plan, I'm hoping that all of our associates can be on a 4-day work week forever. I
think I know why, but let's talk about that.
Well, I think it's a quality of life issue. This deal of, people expecting people to work 7 days a week or 6 days a week, bell to bell. So we've shortened our bell to bell, right? So we've shortened the hours in the store by 1 or 2 hours in most cases, if not 3 per day during the week. We've shut down on Sunday, where we're in one of our stores. One of them was already shut on Sundays by law. And we're still trying to figure out how this can work best. That doesn't mean I'm going to go up to somebody who's been selling 30 or 40 cars uh, a month who works who leaves at 5 every day because they want to be home when their kids get home, that I'm going to mandate it. But we're going to hire into a new model of a 4-day work week, 10-hour days, for our techs, and for our salespeople, and for our BDC people, and for our F&I people. And by the way, we also may not need as many managers. We've learned that if you don't try to hold people back, it leaves you a lot of time to encourage them to do what they already know how to do. And so a lot of things have changed in this business model, and we are going to plan for them to be permanent. And that's
So
go ahead.
I want to get back to your planning real quick. And so
Okay.
I'm going to come back to, I promise to get back to this reducing manager, because I love the forward thinking. When you came up with the 3 tiers, and was it 40, 60, 80?
No, 40, 50, 60, 40, 50, 60.
40, 50, 60. Okay. 40, 50, 60. What made you do that? And then what were those benchmarks that made you determine, okay, I'm going with this spreadsheet, or I'm going with this reduction, or this one?
So, at the onset of COVID, we were able to do a demand analysis based on what was going on in our stores, right? And you could see it every day. The first thing that disappeared, not that we knew this when we did the 40, 50, 60. Well, once you build that sheet, you can make a change in any department based on the revenue and and what you need. We felt like 60% reduction was as close to shutdown as we would ever get to for long term. That we felt like 40% of it is 40% of your business is coming to you, will continue to come to you, is necessary for parts, for service, for lease terminations, transactional, whatever it may be. So that was a 60% reduction. But what we did was we built these sheets, and then they all affect, right? So how many hours of coverage do you need? How much leadership do you need? How many technicians do you need to accomplish this? And so it became the build of this spreadsheet. So it started with an analysis of what 100% business looked like at that day, and then backing it off and saying, okay, how can we accomplish this? What level of risk are we willing to take, and how do we survive? Now, in my case, and this may be the case of many of the people who are listening, they may also be the landlord. So so you have to make a decision whether, as a landlord, you want to take any reductions as well. Along this way. I chose not to for specific purposes. And then when PPP got involved, it was the right decision, right? So in my case, we charge appropriate rent to each of the facilities. And we took that off as a negotiable. The other thing we took off as a negotiable initially was terminating associates and furloughing. That's why we did the 20% reduction. And the thing that we're still doing for all of our associates, at least through the end of May, if whether they're working or not, is we pay 100% of their benefits. This may not be the greatest way to share this, but this week we're making decisions of as we change our plan and modify our plan. Again, you can't modify a plan until you start with one. So every week we go through and say, okay, how do we have to modify the plan? And when the associates started to come to us and say some of them were uncomfortable coming to work, as part of our plan, we said, okay, we're going to go to our associates with the most tenure and ask them if they want to come to work or they don't want to come to work, based on their health, their family requirements, whatever it may be. And as you know, the PPP and the FMLA and all this stuff continues to change. And if you're frustrated by that, it's fine. But I'm going to tell you, it's less frustrating if you already have a plan and only have to modify that small part of it. So without trying to be confusing, we had some associates who said they'd prefer to furlough. So our reduction of staffing was both driven by the demands of the business and social distancing. So, initially at all of our stores, we put a bay between every working tech. So you can't social distance if their bays are next to each other effectively. Obviously, I think, we had a tactical plan, the cleaning plan, but there were some strategic things that we had to do to meet the demands of the market. But I will tell you, the first thing that hit us in the chin was we had this belief in quick service as a good partnership to growing our businesses. And our quick service business basically disappeared. So quick service in the car business means you show up without an appointment, you get in and out within some shortened amount of time, usually 30 minutes. We went from 50 quick services a day in one store down to less than that in a week, and some days of 3 or 4. But we were still driving repair business, certainly recall business, but our maintenance business kind of slowed down. So that was a kind of a sign of the behaviors of the consumers, right? That they weren't leaving their house to do something that they could do later. And so that led to us, again, having a little bit change of plan along the way. And while some of the quick service is coming back, most of your quick service technicians and your advisors are your shortest tenure, because we use those as part of our plan to grow our people. So if you come in and you're hired as a quick service technician, our goal is for you to be a regular technician within a year and a master tech within 4. Right? So that's the plan. So that means all of your quick service technicians are fairly new tenure, short tenure. And our goal is for everybody who's writing quick service as an advisor will be a regular advisor when the opportunity comes up that they're prepared for. So those people didn't have much tenure. So they were given the last choice of staying at work or not. And so
you go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to say, I love these Zoom meetings. Go ahead.
It's your turn. It's your turn.
I was gonna say, you brought up the 4-day and the reduced management potentially, but all of that is because of something you discovered during COVID. And I want you to talk a little bit about, so you saw the consumer preferences, and you saw the big reduction in just the drop-ins, right? So that led, I know in our talks earlier, right, you went to a heavy dose, sales and service, of appointment setting only. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So some of that is driven by the government. They say that's how you have to work in the Northeast, and we took it to heart. The last thing I wanted to do, remember the first thing you have to do is avoid stopping. If that's a true belief, that doesn't, and don't be offended by that. That doesn't mean you shouldn't pull all of your marketing, honest to gosh. But stopping your business is the thing you had to avoid. And there's one entity that can stop your business right now: the government. And so the government put a threat out there basically saying, listen, we'll allow you to have be open and serviced, but you're not allowed to have anybody on the showroom, but you can do business in their home, or you can do business remotely. And so we took that to heart. Well, you're certainly not going to show up to somebody's house with a car without an appointment. So then we built this model of, we call them VIP appointments. When somebody says, can I just come in? No, we're working by VIP appointment only. We're dedicating a specific person to you. When you come into the store, you'll notice that the store is extremely clean. We'll show you where there's a place for you to sanitize your hands if you choose to. And you'll notice that all of our associates have a mask on when they're engaged with a customer. You're not obligated to do that, but we certainly feel more comfortable if you do. And that mask thing, by the way, if people 10 minutes into it start to feel comfortable, et cetera, and they'll maybe pull them down if they're inside the dealership. But we were taking cars to people and continue to. We were picking up cars. We kept people on staff who used to do something else, where the demand for their department had gone down, but now they were driving and picking up cars back and forth, because the last thing you want to do is have a technician going out there to pick up a car.
So what you did is you reallocated some responsibilities to people to keep people busy that were still actively employed.
Correct.
Okay.
So taking those quick service technicians and asking them to show up and become drivers, delivery and pickup, and maybe they could do some remote service if it was necessary. But for the most part, they became drivers, so that we could pick up and deliver at no cost to the consumer. And so that kept those people engaged. And again, if we go back to that thing that I brought up before, there's that dignity thing, for somebody to walk in and tell somebody that they've lost their job is a major, major, major thing to happen to somebody. When you ask somebody, tell me about you, about 80% of the people who are employed today will answer about their job first. Well, I work at, and this is what I do. That's who they define themselves as. And if you take that away from them, that was a dignity piece. And again, we're not in New York City, so we weren't, faced with some of the real harsh realities, but in that Boston market, Providence market, and Maine market, we let the government kind of take the lead, but I also got involved with the government and offered to serve with each of the governors as an advisor, because I have a relationship with them, to give a little bit of input about what is the safest way for us to move forward. And I'm not a doctor, but I don't think any of our governors are either, right? So they needed some economic advice from somebody who in the past has proven to be an ally to them, and been willing to share thought processes before. So that kind of came into play as well. But listen, everybody's upset with every governor. They've either opened up too fast for 90% of the people, or they haven't opened up fast enough for the other 90%. And the reason I say 90% is because there's about 40% of the people that will complain no matter what happens. So, but that being said, we started to think of the consequences of every decision we were going to make as it related to our mission statement. And our mission statement is to serve, and it's the customer, the community, our families, and each other. So, again, sending somebody home and not telling them when they're going to come back is tough. Sending all these kids home is a devastating thing right now. So
talk to me. I know where you're going with this, but let's let the audience know. Moving forward with the appointment setting, how do you see that playing out for you?
We see it as controlled through our BDC, both our service and sales BDC. We have believed that nobody has made their first contact by driving onto your lot, that they've either been to your website, et cetera. But we are setting appointments for social distancing. We've actually turned some people away if they showed up as a drive-in. Because
so I show up at your store unannounced, and this is so rare for a car deal. I show up at your store unannounced. You're turning me away.
It depends on how booked that day is. If you show up unannounced and say, listen, we're working by appointment only. I do have one extra associate right now. I'd like to confirm this as an appointment, and let you know that you can do everything either remotely or outside of the dealership. You don't have to come inside, but let's make sure we have all of your information and I have the right person assigned to you who can take care of you. We're treating our customers like we value their time, and we're treating our associates like we value their time as well. And now,
the customer, I was going to ask, does the customer, in your opinion, has this been a better experience for the customer than the norm?
Well, 90% of the people are buying. Yeah. That must say something. So our success rate is higher than it's ever been by far. And we're not going on test drives with the customer, which was the mantra when I got in the car business. And that's, we're almost at somewhere near 40 years, right? You have to go with them. If you don't go with them, you can go home, that kind of stuff. So a large percentage of people, not the last I was tracking, it was close to half, were buying cars without a test drive. Now, there are more test drives but all without an associate. But I would say that a third of the people are still buying cars without a test drive, that they trust the product. They've had one before. And we're still doing what we did before, which is we will not let somebody go on a test drive until we pair their phone. So
I was on a Facebook conversation the other day, auto related, and someone had posed the question, what's your best selling tool, so to speak? And, you're getting all kinds of answers. And somebody, a salesman at one of the dealerships had responded saying the test drive. And I said, I don't know if that's the strongest tool. I said, I was trying to be constructive. I don't know if that's the strongest tool. I said, most people, right, especially right now, are buying without test drives, right? And he says, that's my strongest weapon. And I said, you need a bigger weapon.
right, right. Listen, I mean, they can get the car any place, right? Unless you have that unique car, you've got the 8-year-old car with 900 miles on it. They can get the car any place. So it's all about this experience. But we started maybe a year or so ago. You can ask any of the associates that we have been pair the phone. We believe that nobody will buy a car if their phone doesn't work in it. So by pairing the phone, it gets us into that technology talk. So there's safety and technology talks, but it's the three words that we ask every customer is, do you text? Right? Once they say yes, that allows me, when I pair the phone, to send them my information, and obviously I have their information. And not that I'm going to use it, but now I can show them how the texting feature works in the car. And certainly I don't want anybody, and we give them a map of where they're supposed to drive the car if they're confused at all about that. But anyway, people are driving one car and buying it. Yeah. And so in comparison, what I'm hearing is that other people are trying to get back to what they used to do. I'm fighting to never go back to what we used to do.
Consumers, there are elements of COVID that have become a big pain to consumers. There are other elements that consumers are going, well, maybe COVID isn't so bad. When I'm running errands and I'm getting curbside delivery and I can go run 5 errands like I did last weekend and never get out of my car.
Right.
I got news for everybody. I'm not going backwards on that. I love that. Right. So the businesses that want to continue that level of service, that's where I'm going. And to me, customers tend to reward businesses, not the ones that go backwards in terms of making things easier, faster, more convenient. It's the ones that keep pushing forward. And so from what you're saying is, listen, if I'm going to buy a car, and I agree with you, and all the research says it as well, customers have already done their research before they stepped foot on your lot. So if I can set an appointment and know when I show up, I don't have to sit there searching around for someone to help me. I don't have to waste time. I'm there to do this, whether it's to test drive a car, buy the car, get more information on the car. Maybe I am the one person that, or the minority now that has to see the color in person or
Sure.
touch it and feel it. But whatever the case, if I can make a VIP appointment, show up, I assume and perceive that before I even do it as being more convenient and easier on me as a consumer.
Right. And much less burdensome on me as a dealer, and much less burdensome on the salespeople. Right. So if your people were busy and you set the expectation and you kept them busy throughout the day, you could do more with less, is what we found out. Right. So we believe that our salespeople are supposed to be in sales, customer service, and marketing. And we try to hold them accountable for the marketing, but the reality is that if you are going to have 16 appointments today and you schedule them as 1 hour, and should they be successful, maybe they're 2 hours in total. If you are managing when they come in, like the doctor's office, or maybe even better than the doctor's office, how many salespeople would you need? I've got 16 appointments today. We're open for 8 or 9 hours, maybe 10. I could do that with 4 salespeople.
That's right.
And sell, based on our numbers, 15 or 14 cars, right?
And
I could do
what
that.
allows you to go to the 4-day week. This is because you can schedule it. You know what you've got.
And I can do it with less managers, right? So, and I'm not telling anybody to downsize their management, but we have made it a requirement for anybody who is a sales manager or any part of the front of the house that they have to be able to do F&I as well, in case that situation gets backed up. But I also don't need closers anymore. You just don't. If you hold on to your people and you make it easy for the customer to understand, customers have become compliant to direction if you give them good, positive direction from the point of view of somebody who knows what they're doing. So we've continued to educate our staff along the way on why things are where they are right now, why today might be the best time ever to buy a car, even though your car's worth $3,000 less than it was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to tell you, you've created other innovations from this appointment setting, and you just kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's get specific. When you said that you're not training, but conditioning your customers, and you're doing it in a way, by the way, that in a way they prefer. So it's not like you're just forcing them to do something, but go into what you're doing from a discount, because you want your day, you can't have everybody coming in at one time. Right. So how do you manage that? So
that's the use of that word VIP, right? So people are definitely flexible, right? With, I'm guessing that there's still somewhere around 20 to 25% of the people who are furloughed or not going back to work, right? I don't know what the unemployment statistics are, but I'm assuming you're working from your home right now, right?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Okay. So you're flexible. You may have 100 things to do today. Some of them have to be done at a specific time, but others don't. So if I can make this experience great for you, let me put you in one of our VIP slots. So the thing that had driven me crazy forever was 30 people showing up in the service lane at between 7 and 9 a.m. And then I've got nobody in the afternoon, right? So how do you change the customer's behavior? Well, you have to give them incentive to change the behavior, whether that's saving them time, saving them money, or making the experience that much better, right? So when you're leaving the dentist office after your cleaning, they're setting you up for your next appointment, right? And because you're doing it so far in advance, they also do a reminder, right? So we're doing the same thing. So, we found that people get in and out a lot quicker if they do this in the afternoon. I'm going to set your next appointment for 5 months from now. I'm going to put it in my phone, put it in our system, you put it in your phone, and we'll send you a reminder a week before in case the convenience changes for you. But now I can take somebody who's a morning drop-off and turning them into a 2:30 in the afternoon appointment. And I can do the same thing in sales.
And just so everybody out there, especially in the dealer world or even outside, that are thinking, well, that wouldn't work for me. That doesn't work in my market, which is, you hear that in a lot of places. The reality is, so you're not just, these aren't wishes. You're actually gaining ground here. And so as I kind of said earlier, and I can't remember if we were recording it at the time or not, but listen, I don't believe businesses, their success should be measured. Am I selling the same or more during COVID or right after as I was prior, as much as it is, am I growing market share? And so right now you're outpacing competitors at a far greater pace than you were prior, correct?
Yeah. So I will share with you at some point quickly, if this is going to be video. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, as long as it records right.
I can do a share screen because I've done it before, but my Subaru store in Saco, Maine is one of 64 Subaru dealerships in New England. We finished last year number 3. We're in the 58th or 59th market. So we're in one of the smallest markets, and we've always outkicked our coverage. This will be the first month that we believe will be number 1. We're in the top 10 or 15 in the country right now in a market. My AOR has 99,000 people in it. And right now, I don't know when I'll pull it up. Let me see if I can get to it. Sorry.
Let's not pull it up only because.
Got it.
If other stores are on there, I don't want them to.
They're all aware, I promise you. But we're about 40.
They may not want it. They may not want it shared though.
Right. So we're about 40 new cars ahead.
Yeah.
We're also having our best used car month ever in that store. We'll deliver somewhere between 270 and 300 cars. We were over 200 as of yesterday when I was there, well over 200. With 8 salespeople, 2 F&I managers, 2 sales managers. three BDC people. So that's the entire staff. So if you take 270 as what we think is kind of the lowest number we're going to do, we divide that by the 8 and or 9, because we have a couple of people who are doing 3-day weeks sharing, but call it 9 salespeople. That's an average of 30 cars per salesperson.
Yeah, that's only about 20 more than the average.
Right. So, but again, I'm giving you the entirety of that front end staff so that you know what we're doing it with, right? Because somebody will sit there and say, well, I average 30. And I say, okay, well, let's add up all the associates. So I've got, we'll call it 9 salespeople, 4 managers, that's 13, plus 3 BDC people full-time, some working from home. So that number now is 16 people. That's your divider. That's when you figure out what your sales per associate are, is you take the entirety of the people that work on the front end of the store and divide it by the total number of cars that you sell. This month will be our highest number ever in that store. Right. So our sales per associate, I mean, it's going to be close. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit over 15, is somewhere between 15 and 17 sales per associate, counting everybody. And so we like this. I'm certainly not going to share with you the financial side of it, but that store also got a tremendous influx from PPP. But I believe, hopefully not too many people listen to this, that we would have been profitable without it.
Well, I want a lot of people to listen to it.
So when you talk about, but you talk about the plan, right? So in the case of that state, we're now making plans for, okay, what happens after PPP is over? Right. What does it look like? And we're trying to make those decisions now. And it may mean that store, which is doing well in service, doing well in parts, doing well in sales, will still function with 10 to 15% less associates. We've had 3 associates who chose to not come back to work. I'm going to be a stay-at-home parent. My wife's a nurse, and we're done. Been there for a long time, appreciate it. And if you want me to come in and mow the grass, I'm happy to do that. But I've got special needs kids at home, and I'm going to do that. It's somebody else who has said, you know what, I'm going to go back to college and I'm going to do it full time. And I think I can whip through, and this is really good news. I think I can whip through a 4-year degree in 2 years now, because it's all online. There's no bullshit frat parties. There's no driving to campus. There's no movie. I'm going to sit at home and work 8 hours a day. And I think I can go through 4 years of college, get an advanced accounting degree in 2 years, right? And become a CPA. Awesome. Right. And I'm going to dedicate myself to that. And so we've had a couple of people who have chosen to do that. I think we have a couple of people that are not going to be invited back. And in one or more of the stores, but they are the people that weren't multifunctional and might've been pulling the rope in the other direction. And we've decided that if people aren't going to pull the rope in the direction that we're going, we'd like them to let go of the rope. And if they won't let go on their own, we'll pry their hands from it.
It's hard to move forward and when everyone's not rowing in the same direction. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
We've also started to assess the job market. While we're not hiring, other than one new position, actually an HR position, we do have some retirements coming up, but we're also going to kind of see what's out there. And as I told people last week, I said, if a pilot walked into your dealership and said, listen, I'm furloughed until January 1st and make $275,000 a year. I'm going back to work on January 1st, but I'd like to sell cars and I'll do exactly what you want me to do. And by the way, I served 8 years in the military before I became a pilot. Would you hire her? And the answer should be yes. But I will tell you that the majority of managers in a car dealership would not hire that person. In my store, I would hire that person immediately, right? With a complete understanding of what it looks like. There are school teachers who are not, specifically, they don't have a class, right? So I'm not saying that if you have a wood shop teacher, it's hard for them to do that through Zoom, right? So, but they said, listen, I come to work during the summer. I'm going to, I'll walk around the dealership, find myself work to do every day, fix things, maybe build something for you if you need, whatever it is. Would you hire that person with the understanding they were going to go back to work in September, or maybe not go back to work in September? My answer is yes. Other people would say no. There are people that teach mechanics. We hire their students. Why aren't you hiring their instructors at this point? Even if it meant they had to work on used cars on a day where you're closed. They're good self-managed people. So you need 2 people in the shop to do that. But yeah, it's a way for you to expand your production in a time where making your real estate count is going to be a big part of this as well. So, you know, when you can only have every other bay open, how do you get 7 days a week out of it instead of 6, especially if you're closed on Sunday?
Yeah. And so I think, you know, obviously if you're closing this high of a percentage of the people that actually show, and this goes for anybody, what I love, and I'll go back to that point. What I love about what you're doing is, and you said this earlier, listen, most of these cars are all the same unless you're talking about certain types of pre-owned or used cars. So as the marketplace continues to push you into what I call this commodity corner, right? A lot of businesses and business leaders struggle with, how do I become more profitable? How do I differentiate myself, which is key. And what you're saying is, listen, just because my product is the same does not mean how I treat people, how my process to buy has to be the same as everybody else. I can be innovative in those areas and create a better customer experience, be more efficient. And that's how you win people. You're selling more, you're making more because of it. And so,
go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, if a lot of these people are coming in and you've got this 90% closing, it means, especially on something that's such a high ticket, you may be talking to people earlier. And what I mean by earlier is email, chat, text, or by phone, and where there might be some selling that in prior, we were trained in this business, hey, you can't sell anybody unless they're here.
Yeah, just come in, just come in, right? And,
correct.
And, we noticed a change, and we actually had some issues along the way with this. We noticed that people, you could never get anybody on the phone. Now you can't get anybody off the phone, right? Wow. So you know, in panic, a lot of people disbanded their BDC, and they said, well, you know, it's slow. My sales managers could take it. Your sales manager cannot stay on the phone for 20 minutes. They have ADD. It's why you hired them to be sales managers. It's part of the deal. But these people in the BDC, and I had to explain to my sales managers and GSMs that you might be the best person on the phone, but you also might be the best person to drive me to the airport today. You shouldn't be doing either one of them. You need to have somebody else doing it who can build that rapport. And we have connected to customers as opposed to connecting to trying to sell them a car. Once you get them on the phone, usually they initiate somehow. We want to have a discussion, but we're using technology to communicate. We're doing bomb video walkarounds of the cars. We're sending it. Listen, most people, I challenge everybody, if you're sending emails right now, I think, and I have never seen your email box, Scott, but you have, my guess is 12,000 unopened emails and zero unopened texts. Zero unopened texts. So why would you be emailing somebody? So that's why we start with this, do you text? And then I send them a 1-minute video of the car that they spoke about. And I finish with, I assume you're going to want more information. I can have a customized walk around done of this vehicle for you. And then the third text is, is it okay if we talk on the phone? And then they get on the phone and they talk for 30 minutes and forget about them no-showing. If they're going to be 5 minutes late, they're texting you because you've told them that we're a COVID protected environment and we're working by appointment only. So we have people that will sit in their car for a 12 o'clock appointment and not get out of the car until 12 o'clock.
Well, I think even post-COVID, you can use the same rationale in terms of setting the VIP appointment. In other words, listen, I could make the same claim, forget COVID for a second. I could make the same claim that I will be able to answer your questions and give you better service through appointments versus trying to handle everybody if they just all come in.
Right.
And
Right.
customers are going to appreciate that. Just, once we get past COVID, if we do, I think they'll appreciate that just as much as well.
We had somebody that had an appointment on a specific car, and we either didn't do a good job or they didn't do a good job. And they came in with their 15-year-old and mother, father, 15-year-old, and said, we're going to drive cars today, and we're going to be buying a car in 6 months. And we told them that we've dedicated one associate to them for 1 hour. At the end of the hour, we could not continue to serve them because we had somebody coming behind. And of course they said, well, we'll just go someplace else and drive the car, but we appreciate your time. And we're okay with that. And we followed up with them. They haven't eliminated us, but I'm not going to have a salesperson work with a family for 4 or 5 hours with no intention of completing a transaction. In the past, you would say, well, that's not very nice. Well, if you're in a restaurant and you have 5 tables as a waiter, and one of the tables says, I'm going to be here from the time you open till the time you leave, and I'm not going to tip you, I think you owe it to your family to ask them to move along at that point, right? I'm going to have water.
Yeah, we've all sat at tables. I said we've all sat at tables and had the waiter or the waitress come over. Here's your check. And can I get you subtly tell you it's time to move on, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, until you value the customer's time as high as you value your own time, and then value your associates, your salespeople, your technicians, your advisors' time the same. And I use the doctor thing all the time. Listen, you sit there and wait for a doctor, and if it's me, it gets me to be a divorce. If I've got a 1 o'clock appointment and I'm not and I'm in the waiting area for an hour, I leave. I'm even less time than that. But I want you to value my time as much as you want me to value your time. And that is a big change that's happened. The internet has changed. People are not showing up for cars you don't have. They know you have the car. Yesterday, customers asked one of the salespeople if we had the car in blue, and the guy runs up to the sales desk and says, do we have this car in blue in stock? And I said, you just turned a question into an objection, right? Yes, if I do or I don't, it's not important. It seems like you like this one. Let's go ahead and move forward. If color becomes an obstacle, we'll deal with that at the end. Fair enough, right? And they said, yeah, I was just asking because my friend wanted a blue one. It has nothing to do with me, right? But we're trying to anticipate objections instead of answer questions.
I love that you use that phrase, because one of the things that we try to teach, and some are better at it than others, is I believe every objection is really just a question in disguise. And so when you mentally approach an objection as a question, it's far easier to kind of mentally deal with that customer than it is, oh no, why are they objecting? And what the mental approach to that, right?
Right. The simple one that we teach is, oh, those payments are high. That's not a question. That's not an objection. It's a statement. It's a statement. I don't disagree, but they're certainly lower than others that I've seen for the same type of car. 0% was meant to drive out confusion. And we also do this week, my training was the life cycle of COVID from the middle of March till today and how it's affected the car business. Because we feel like, at least I try to get to the point of our salespeople are experts. So what we play the game is expert or idiot, right? So, and I use the Best Buy scenario. I said, you go into the Best Buy and there's 2 TVs. They're both 50-inch TVs, and one's $599, one's $699, and the salesperson comes over and he said, can you tell me the difference between these 2 TVs? This one's on sale, it's $599. That one's on sale, it's $699. So basically what he's telling you is that he thinks you're an idiot or you're blind, right? So I can see that. No, I asked for the differences between the 2 TVs. And so what that causes you to do is go home and buy a TV online.
Yep.
And then 5 years later, when you're buying another TV after you move into another home and you want something bigger, you're not even going into the Best Buy.
No,
doing it all online.
Correct.
right? So unless you can prove to the customer that they should have confidence in you, like you do a doctor, like you do the person that cuts your hair, whatever it is, I have confidence in the person that cuts my hair, I promise you. I do it myself, right? So
You've got the right type. You've got the right type of COVID hairstyle.
yes, it's perfect, right? Since you're going to send this out to people who or if people are going to listen to this that I don't know, I won't tell you the other part of the joke, but I do it myself. So, and once a day. Try to become an expert so that they trust. Listen, in fear and confusion, I can put a piece of tape on the floor and people will automatically stand behind it. They'll do what you ask them to do as long as you ask them to do it. Don't be afraid to ask them to do it. You're now, ice cream's big in Maine. You have to have an appointment to get ice cream. You have to order in advance. They're going to bring it out to your car, and that's your experience. But if I said a year ago, that's how you're going to get ice cream, you'd say, no way. Now, okay, there's a price that I have to pay for something that I want. There's a price that you have to pay to transact in a card. It's not just a monthly payment. But we value your time. We're going to make sure it's used extremely well. And we're going to give you advice if you request it. Yeah. But we want people to know why today, right now, might be the best time in the next 5 years to buy a car. And I think you need to, if you're opening your business and you're a florist or any kind of business that's allowed to be open, you need to have that in your mind as well as each of the associates' mind as why now is the time to do that. And I think for those of you in the car business, we are in the sweetest spot ever. We all have 0% on almost every car available. It's made cars more affordable. It's made confusion on payment go away because everybody can do the math with the thing they have in their pocket, their cell phone, right? So you can take $30,000 and divide it by 60 months and figure out what your payment is. There's no hoodoo, economics or anything. But right now, the life cycle of the car business, and again, this is part of our planning, was we continued to take inventory as this started. 0% was meant to drive business in March, and it did not work. Everybody was paralyzed. Nobody knew what to do. So at the 1st of April, what did every manufacturer do? Couldn't go better than 0. The incentives were strong already. They shut down their plants. They shut down all of their plants. And by the way, you should know this. They didn't complete cars. They shut down like pulling the light switch at the same time. So cars were still in the process of being manufactured. So when they opened back up, everybody could come back and complete their same job. It's kind of a unique thing because I never thought about it before. But we're at close to retooling time or remodel time for 2021s. So the dealer inventory of new cars, not used, but new cars is going to be very tight this summer. Yep. And that is an opportunity when the demand is higher than the supply for the manufacturers to pull back on incentives. So my guess is that when the 2021s come out in mass, that there will be no 0% financing. And 0% means somewhere between $3,000 and $7,000 to most customers in the ownership experience. So there's never been a time when you can really save $7,000 between buying a car today and buying a car in September. And the one thing that I can tell you that we're fighting against is every manufacturer saying, oh, you can extend your lease. Well, there's not going to be any cars around if you extend your lease for 2 or 3 more months, and you're going to be not available to get to the 0%. So we're encouraging our people to know the facts, be aware.
Hopefully you're also educating customers on this.
Right, that's what we're doing, right? So we're getting on the phone with everybody. We immediately went to March, April, May, June, and went to a heavy, both lease, 3-year-old customer base, and went out and said, it's time for us to have an explanation of why today you need to have an analysis, right? But the first question is, do you need our help in either deferring your current monthly payments or speaking with the lender about what your options are? And that allowed people to understand we were calling for them to benefit them. And that's turned into this tremendous month that we're having, or multiple months. Since the middle of April, we've seen Maine open up. We're waiting for Massachusetts to open up. Massachusetts and Rhode Island are similar to the New York metropolitan area in that they're both over, I think, 1.7% infected. So they're still, pretty freaked out and paralyzed. But Maine is, I think, at 0.2% infected and very few deaths. So the Maine market has opened up, and so we're fortunate that we were ready. But to know that you could actually sell 14 cars in a day with 4 salespeople and treat everybody right is an amazing day, because it helps you change your model, right? It just helps you change your model.
I think you've got a perfect example of, you set a perfect example of the importance of planning and using data to make your decisions. And so, but also at the same time, because this show is all about helping people who are in commodity business or feeling that pressure being marginalized. And you've showed it. I mean, I think it's a perfect example. And this is the reason I wanted to have you on here, because a perfect example of what can be accomplished even in the most challenging of times. Sometimes, everyone knows the phrase, sometimes your biggest challenges turn into the biggest blessings, right? Well, I think you're a perfect example of that right now.
Well, we hope
you're demonstrating it.
Well, wait, listen, this was way overdue. If you ask people if they'd like to be able to buy a car within an hour, and their answer would be yes.
Without the tension, without the
right.
Correct.
And the biggest obstacle, if you ask anybody in the store right now, is the data, and that is what their current car is worth based on the data. There's no good used car data right now. Right. So that's why we focused on this, explaining the last 10 weeks. That's why everybody here has heard the story. Why, even though your car is worth less than it was 3 months ago or 2 months ago, you're in better condition. But this better condition is temporary. Used car pricings will be suppressed and depressed for a long period of time because of the rental car industry and a lot of people not needing their car as much. We've pointed out that the demand for cars is going to go up, because in metropolitan areas, people aren't going to get on buses if they can avoid it, or getting on the subway if they can avoid it. And a car will represent freedom again. I'm not getting in the back of somebody's Uber for a long time, right? And I don't know how to fix the hotel industry, and I don't know how to fix the rental car industry, and I don't know how to fix the airline industry, but I know how to fix my business. And I think everybody should feel that same way, is to figure out what the demand for your business is going to be and make a plan around it that allows you to be profitable with that level of demand. As marketers, I agree with you, by the way. I never have made a market. I have taken market. That's why I can take an open point. Manufacturer doesn't put an open point out there unless there's a market there to be had. That's why we've taken that model. It takes a long time to get to where we are. But you can ruin your market taking through messaging and turnover. You shouldn't turn over your customers. You shouldn't turn over your associates. And once you get to that point, then you can fix the long-term thing of this, right? So, everybody's like, why are you building a brand new dealership right now? It's because I think there's market to be had. Significant enough for me to collect the rent and still have a profit. But also, the reason we were really interested in continuing to grow is to give opportunity to people who have been loyal to me to have an opportunity to grow into a leadership role. Because if your GM never leaves, what happens to the people who want to be a GM? They have to leave your organization, right? So it all dictates the behavior. And go back to the original question. I think we were all exposed to people doing it the right way. Some of us just ignored it. And it's not time to ignore it anymore. It's just, it can be devastating. And so everybody needs to be kind of prepared for what happens in COVID. I can tell you that we know exactly how much is going to be forgiven. And then when they change the rules every week, we make adjustment to our workbook and our spreadsheet.
Let's hope the rules keep getting better. But yeah, I agree. We know exactly what's going to be forgiven on our end as well. So we've done a good job with that. But, all right. Is there anything you want to part with to the audience? Outstanding job today. I think you gave great specifics And I think a lot of the business leaders and entrepreneurs that listen to this are going to walk away from this. And listen, even if they didn't plan and strategize the right way moving forward, it's not too late to start doing that, because like you said, a lot of this isn't going away.
Yeah, I would say that it starts with continuing to provide some training for your people, or education. It doesn't have to be training. Continuing to expand their horizons. I would suggest that almost everybody out there buy their leadership team a book this month. You can start with, it starts with why. That might be a good place for you to start. But there are plenty of leadership books, and read it and have a meeting, even through Zoom, ask them to read a couple of chapters and see. It sounds like I try to control people's minds. I don't. I try to fill their minds with good information, right? And so,
or you're you're challenging the way they think,
right?
And that's how we grow.
And I don't want to make anybody afraid, but I'm still not sure what a parts manager does. I'm really not, because managers are supposed to be leaders. Somehow, you have to have that word manager. But being part of the leadership team means you're developing your people. But inventory management's already done for you now, right? It's all done by data. We live in just-in-time parts, as do the manufacturers. So that doesn't mean you fire your parts manager. That means you find out what they do really well and find out if there's a need in the organization or you need to shift their skill set. And then if they choose not to shift their skill set, then they made the choice, not you. But there's harsh reality out there right now. Everything has a financial implication. Everything has a people implication. But try to think about the families and think about your family, et cetera. But, the last thing I'll tell you is my cell phone number is 207-423-6085. If you text me, it's there 24/7. It pisses off my wife that I do look at it, but yes, and people do text in the middle of the night. And anybody's welcome to come either see us or talk to us. I have nothing to sell you unless you want a great experience in buying a car, or getting your car fixed or something like that. And that, fall in love with what you do and you'll be able to fix it a lot easier than if you hate what you do.
Adam Arens, everybody. Absolutely. Thank you. A great episode.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you to Adam Arens for graciously agreeing to share his knowledge and his experience with us today. Big shout out and thank you to MCC Nation for tuning in. Next episode, it's our final episode of season 1. We're interviewing the president of J&L Marketing, Jamil Zabaneh, and he is going to share everything digital. When you listen to this episode, you are going to be able to take nuggets away from this that will instantly boost traffic and sales for you. So exciting episode, and it's a great way to close out season 1. As always, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure you join our Facebook and LinkedIn groups. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter. This way you get all up-to-minute, information in terms of new guests, new interviews that we're doing. You get to watch all these different locations where we record at. Exciting season. We did great things, and we'll see you on the next episode.